Hello and welcome to Quays News. The time is 4 o'clock. I'm Zaina Znadi.
And I'm Christopher Rice. Here are the top stories for today.
The UK's biggest ever university strikes started outside Manchester University this morning. 14 days of walkouts begin over pay, equality and workloads.
The University and College Union have announced a 14-day strike at 74 universities. Matthew Cobb, Professor of Zoology at the University of Manchester, explains why he is striking.
We need to be confident that we're going to get a decent pension when we retire, or that we're going to have a proper contract, or that we're going to be paid adequately for the work we're doing. And we're kind of at the end of our tethers.
Students arrived at the Strike Support Network meeting. Wilf Kenning is the organiser.
If the lecturers are going on strike, we need to do as much as possible to work for our conditions, because if they're suffering, then it means that ultimately our education is suffering. The amount of time that they are paid for to work is just not working in the situation that they're in, and they need to have far more support from the university to give us the education that they're charging us exorbitant fees for.
Part of the problem of any strike is that you've got to disrupt the service that you're providing, and in this case that means primarily our work with students and with the research that we're doing, as well as the administration. So in a way I hope that students will be disrupted, because that's the university's prime business. All universities make their money primarily through students, and so we're going to have to stop teaching students, and I hope students will be unhappy about that and protest to their various vice-chancellors and so on.
Today, Pride is celebrated with a rainbow flag. However, life for the LGBT community wasn't always this bright. Lucia Fitzgerald, an activist for the community, speaks of the darker times. February is LGBT History Month, which aims to eradicate prejudice and educate people. Today, Manchester is a vibrant and accepting city, especially of those in the LGBT community. However, things haven't always been this way, as I found out when I chatted to Lucia Fitzgerald.
What I witnessed in that pub back in the 60s, that story should be told, because it was the beginning of what you see today, the very birth of it, what you see today. The oppression was shocking. The police was forever coming in and arresting all the lads because it was illegal to be gay if they were touching or holding hands or anything. Some of the lads we saw again, and they were black and blue. Others we never saw again, and we never knew what happened to them. Suicide was very, very a big thing, because that was the only way out, especially for a lot of lads. We were trying to survive in our own way. We used to get the daylights kicked out of us outside the union, going in or out of it every night, all depending on the mood of the public and the police. So it was a terrible, terrible time for anybody to be gay in those days. The difference now, when I think back, I only think back in black and white. Now I see everything in colour, because you've gone from shock and oppression to absolute out, and everybody just being who they are and being respected and loved.
So what would you like to see happen in the future, and what message would you give to younger people in the LGBT community?
Well, in the LGBT community, I'd like to say, you know what I mean, stop judging each other, stop judging each other. Please accept everybody for who they are. But you must always respect women's rights as well, Don't stigmatise people that say, well, look, we have this right and that right and the other right. Just stick together. Love is love. No judgment.
While it's easy to enjoy the acceptance we have now, it is important to appreciate the history and people who got us here. Christopher Rice, Quays News.
This past weekend, a protest in the heart of Manchester shut down an HSBC bank. I took to the streets and spoke to the protesters. Green, red, black, and white. The colors of the Palestinian flag adorned the streets of Manchester when both Palestinians and Jews marched in solidarity.
And their parents were outside weeping, praying, and I knew...
Adi Mormech saw this violence firsthand in the summer of 2014 when 2 of his students were tragically killed.
And it is our job to break the chains, just like with South Africa, break the chains of complicity.
Family.
What does that mean to you?
It was horrific because one of them I knew very well, and I got the message from another student. And I'll tell you the point here. I was doing protests on an arms factory at the time because it was the bombing of Gaza. Everyone was going crazy. So many people were killed. It was a horror show. And we went and we occupied an Israeli arms factory. And while we were on the roof of that arms factory, an Elbit arms factory in Shenstone, they killed my student with a drone.
Viva, viva!
They called upon companies such as HSBC to divest from supplying the Israeli government with guns. They want an end to the violence.
Free, free!
Evan Pritchard, a member of Palestine Solidarity Campaign, says it is important to distinguish between what they are protesting and anti-Semitism.
We are not racist, we are not anti-Semites, far from it. When people who are campaigning in solidarity with the Palestinians talk about Zionism, they're talking about a racist colonialist operation.
According to the CST, the Community Security Trust, 1,800 anti-Semitic incidents were reported in the UK in 2019, a rise from previous years.
And we won't turn our backs on the Palestinians.
Eddie Mormich says this is not about religion, nor is it about race. It's not if you are Palestinian or Jewish. It's about one group committing violence against another.
International governments actually support.
HSBC were contacted but declined to comment. Chairman Mark Tucker has said previously they do not take positions on political issues.
A Liverpool record shop has been nominated for Best Independent Music Retailer of the Year. The shop also doubles as a popular music venue and is the only one in the Northwest to have been shortlisted.
Where the Beatles used to play has been nominated for Independent Music Retailer of the Year at this year's Music Week Awards. The Jacaranda is not only a record shop, but is also home to a record label and a live performance space. The team are thrilled at the nomination, which sees them alongside some of the big beasts of the independent record shop world, such as Rough Trade.
I think it's just an incredible validation of all the work that's been put in over the last 5 years. We've grown this from a very, very small idea that was maybe we could sell records to now it's grown into encompassing a record label that has 2 bands, or in fact 4 acts that we have signed at the moment, and we're starting to put our own releases out. It's grown into the ideas we're exploring at the moment of a vinyl pressing plant. It's grown into the ideas of the studio complex that we're developing in Liverpool at the moment as well. But the recognition of that initial concept, which was all about selling records and putting people in a community space where they could buy records, they could sell the records, they could listen to bands, they could come and drink. I mean, to have that concept validated by something as prestigious as this award would be amazing.
The team will now have to wait until May to see if they win Independent Music Retailer of the Year at this year's Music Week Awards. Amy Allen, Quays News.
We wish them all the best of luck with that.
Now, Manchester City Council has approved the first phase of a £1.4 billion regeneration project, which will see the city centre's first new public park in 100 years. The site behind Piccadilly Station will house a 6.5-acre park around the River Medlock with a multi-storey car park and 2 new office towers. The second phase is expected to provide 1,500 homes, a hotel, and leisure space. Work is expected to begin later this year and could take up to 15 years to complete.
At the Sweaty Mamas exercise class in Urmston, new mums take part in tailored routines to help them recover after childbirth, helping them work towards more advanced exercises once they are stronger.
Initially, I felt quite isolated, quite lonely. I didn't feel like I was being a very good mum sometimes. I was quite often really upset and angry, and the doctor said, you know, exercise is something that can really help you.
The mums use their babies as weights by wearing them and lifting them up and down, with opportunities for older children to join in too.
When you get out and you meet people that are going through the same thing, it's really useful, and it makes you realise that everyone's going through exactly the same and feels the same. It's really nice bonding for the babies actually. He loves being in the carrier and being able to watch what's going on around him, and then any kind of like interaction that we can have together during the class. He loves like being lifted and moved around, and he's always really smiley and happy during that bit of the class.
For women suffering from postnatal depression, the chance to share experiences with other mums in a class like this is invaluable for women like Laura, who became ill with sepsis during her labour with her daughter.
Physically it was really hard to recover from, but sort of mentally it was really hard as well. I found it quite traumatic, and I've had some therapy to deal with that as well, but being able to get out and see other mums and sort of feel like I'm getting my body back again has made a real difference.
That was Helena Davidson reporting on an exercise class in Salford. 15% of new mums experience postnatal depression. Experts recommend getting active as a way to combat the symptoms.
And finally, has the next big star been found in Salford? 16-year-old Amber Khalees released her first single, which she wrote and produced herself.
Same four walls, same old places, looking around at the same old faces. Here we are again.
I picked up a guitar when I was maybe in like year 5 or year 6, doing talent competitions with my sister and stuff. And since then it's just been like a constant flow of just music and learning and progressing. I brought out one of my songs, like my first ever one that I've ever released. It's called Memories. Got like over 900 views, so soon it's going to be getting up to 1,000 hopefully, so that'll be quite nice. Like first ever song on YouTube, like 1,000 views.
Amber is hoping to go to music college next year to continue her journey into making and producing her own music. Amber is the eldest of 4 children who are all musical. Her 2 sisters and brother play piano, guitar and drums. Her mother has even learned the harp. But her biggest motivation comes from her father.
I'm proud of all my kids, but obviously Amber's going up to the next level now, writing her own music, getting it produced. I'm hoping that she continues doing that.
Tell me a bit about the next songs that you're writing.
Well, I've got one that I'm still working on, like putting it all together like in a proper structure so it's a song and not a poem. But that song is kind of about like confidence. In my own personal experience, I've struggled a lot with my skin. The message in the song that I kind of want to get across is that you don't have to change who you are. Just keep going with this journey, like just keep on going, like no matter what comes in your way, just carry on, because, you know, just make the most of it. Like, I guess now people are just like, you know what, like look at the world outside, like it's so beautiful, like let's just go out and just live life to the fullest. I think that's kind of what people want.
I've learned the ocean's deep, deserts wide. I'll search for somewhere else to hide, but everything in this life will only bring back the memories.
It's such a catchy song and so much talent at just 16 years old.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that's the last we'll hear of her.
Not at all.
And now for the weather. In Salford, there is currently heavy rain with a moderate breeze. Tonight will stay cloudy, wet and fairly windy. But that's all we have time for now. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Christopher Rice.
And I'm Zaina Zanati.
Don't forget you can keep up with the programme on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Quays News.
And we'll be back at the same time next week.